Years ago, Apple introduced the first MacBook Air, and we've come a long way since this first computer. So let's go ahead and take a look at the new one. The new M2 MacBook Air with its 13.6-inch display and 500 nits of brightness. Let's go ahead and take a look at it. As you can see, the MagSafe connector is back, and you can get it with dual charger capability, as you can see here, 2 USB-C charging ports. The MacBook Air that we're unboxing today is in the Starlight Gold color. All the attention seemed to be on the midnight color, so I wanted to try out the Starlight Gold color and see what that looked like. Before we move on to the tests, I want to make it clear that I bought this MacBook Air M2 with my own money. This is not a sponsored review, and tell you my thoughts, good or bad, about this machine. The first thing that I noticed is Apple is changing the way they're designing their laptops, and this design is a lot like the 14-inch. And you can see that here, especially on the bottom with the rubber feet. Before, those feet were kind of tapered like you could see on the old MacBook Air, and a lot of times they would shear off. Now the MacBook that we're going to review today is the 16 gigabyte model with a 1 terabyte hard drive. I picked this one because my last review was on the 8 gigabyte MacBook Pro M2, and that one was quite a disappointment. You can see here it's transferring this file pretty quickly. That's a 27 gigabyte file. Okay, so let's look at some video. This is some 4K video from YouTube, from one of my videos. And in a second, I'm going to go ahead and turn on the speakers and let you hear and see what those sound like. So let's go ahead and listen to the speakers. Now let's test out the machine and see how it performs on the internet and see how snappy it is. And I have to tell you, this machine with 16 gigabytes of RAM is way snappier than it is with 8. When I compared the 8 gigabyte MacBook Pro model, it was not as snappy as this. This is a lot better of an experience. Next up, we're going to look and see how the new MacBook Air compares to the screen on the 11-inch iPad Pro. And let's compare the speaker between the two models. Now let's take a look at the ports. On this side, you have a 3.5 millimeter headphone jack, and on the other side, you have the MagSafe 3 connector and the Thunderbolt/USB 4 ports. This is what the illuminated keyboard looks like when you turn the lights down. Next up, let's see how it can play back some 8K 60p video. Maybe you will never do this, but in the future, when 8K cameras become more common and you still have your MacBook Air M2 a few years from now, you might want it to play back this type of video. So let's see how it works. And as we look at the video, it seems to be playing it back just fine, just like if it was 4K or 1080p video. No dropped frames. It seems to be doing a great job. And next up, let's take a look and see how it plays back some 4K, this is 10-bit 422 footage from the Sony A7 IV. And it seems to be doing a fine job with no drop frames. So it has no problem playing back these video streams. So now let me give you my thoughts on this machine. I think if you're doing basic tasks, maybe a little bit of editing here and there, an iMovie, maybe Final Cut Pro, I think you can get away with the base model in the base configuration. But I think you would want to take a hard look at maybe spending the extra money to upgrade the RAM from 8 to 16 gigabytes. Something to keep in mind is when this machine is just on and running, it's using the operating system is using about 6 gigabytes of RAM. And that only leaves you about 2 gigabytes extra. And then when you go past that, it goes into the memory swap off the hard drive. And I'm not going to get into that now, but you would really want to have some more RAM in your machine, especially since you can't upgrade it later. It's something to think about. But also, it begs the question, if you're going to spend that much more money and then maybe upgrade the hard drive to 512 gigabytes, well, now you're at a price point where you are so close to getting a base MacBook Pro 14-inch that's faster, has more ports. Maybe that's the way to go. So you have to ask yourself those two questions. If somebody was going to come to me and say, Mark, I'm looking at these two machines. If I'm looking at the most basic task and I'm just going to be on the internet and I'm going to cruise some websites and I'm going to use it to pay bills and check my email, I think you're fine with the base model because you can get an external hard drive for storage for your photos and your videos and get away with it that way. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. And if you have any questions, be sure to leave them in the comments and have a wonderful day.